Hi, this is Sandeep and welcome to DURGASOFT mobile application development with Android. And today here we are going to talk about the Android application development and a little bit of history and the core concepts of Android. And I'm Sandeep and I have been working with the Android application development from past 5 years. And I had been developing so many other kind of applications like social media applications, entrepreneur applications, and a little bit of native, which are only specific to specific platforms and all. And let's get into the straight into the Android and what is Android and how is it working on, and what the application development goes on with. So what is Android? Android is not actually simply an software or an operating system. It's both a software and operating systems for mobile devices. So which means that it's a couple of packages which supports you on any kind of hardware. It had everything. It had everything from bootloader to the application development till the application level. So Android is basically works on the Linux kernel, which was being developed on a Linux kernel, so it will be based on the Linux kernel, and it was first developed by Google and later has been incorporated with Open Handset Alliance, which is also called as OHA. And OHA is not a specific alliance that is related to a specific company precisely. It is actually a collection of so many other companies where you had the mobile operators and entrepreneurs and a lot of other application developers, software companies, manufacturer units, and so many others. So firstly, let's talk about on what actually the Android will be written on. Generally, in order to make an application, an Android application, you generally need Java concepts. So much of inheritance and overriding, overloading, and what are the core concepts you call as OOPs. You should be very keen on those topics so that it will be very easy while developing an Android application. So the very first Android application or Android phone has been announced on 5th November 2007, which was founding by OHA. And later then it has been developed, or it has been releasing a mobile phone by T-Mobile on 2008, which was announced as the very first mobile of Android in history. It's called T-Mobile G1. So, and regarding the history or the founders of Android, it has been included a team, or the key players of the Android incorporation was Andy Rubin, Rich Miner, Nick Sears, and Chris White. These 4 people actually were the main key players in developing an Android, or you can call it as a mobile OS, which has been, now we are talking about an Android platform. And in late 2007, there are a group of industry leaders, as we called as OHA is not precisely an individual manufacturer or individually operated. It has been industry leaders came together, and the main agenda of OHA is to provide a high quality mobile OS with which is very less expensive. And of course you can find so much of details and more of deep digging on OHA in the link which has been specified on the screen, http www.openhandsetalliance.com. So the Android SDK was first issued. As you know, the Android applications has to get developed only when you had a support of Android SDK. So the very first Android SDK was issued or released in November 2007, which was called 1.0, or you can call it as Android SDK release 1.0. And after the T1 G1 release, there were much of interest that has been inclined or that has been attracted towards the Android mobile OS, because the very smartphone that was available in those days is, except iOS, you don't find any other smart devices. So when you call smart devices, You don't only see smart devices as if we see now, and if you go to 2007 or earlier to that, the smartphones is something which is out of idea. That means internet connection in a mobile phone is a dream till then, till an iOS mobile has been developed to develop or see an internet connection inside a mobile. So till then we see the internet connection on the desktops or laptop connections, but later then iOS has been releasing a smart mobile, but which is not really very coming into the hands of each and every common man because of its cost effectiveness, or because of its high cost and availability. Android SDK is actually an open source code which has been released under Apache source open source license, which means, as we see, Apache had so many free open source softwares, so Android also took part of it and also took the place of a free SDK that is available for the mobile OSs, which is actually called technically as a smartphones. So if you see the graph on the screen, the Android timeline has been changed from timeline to timeline. Like if you see in 2005, Google buys Android Inc., but most of the people had an impression that Google actually invested something in Android, and Android is something is a part of Google by its origin, but it's not the way. That actually had a rumor. Android incorporation, or as we spoke, OHA is the first origin where Android has took its origin, or it took its roots. Then it has been incorporated by Google later, and on 2005 it worked on Dalvik virtual machine starts, which what we are going to talk about Dalvik virtual machine in further classes anyhow. And as of now you can simply think of that like worked on Dalvik it's a start of Dalvik virtual machine. And in 2007 OHA announced its very first mobile, or its very first SDK release. And 2008 you see the G1 phone, which was being announced by T-Mobile, and the very first SDK officially released 1.0 version. And 2008 you see the Android open sourced, which means that it has been available to each and every technical geeks around on that area, so he can simply download the SDK from anywhere and start his development for the mobile applications. So what is OHA, or which is called Open Handset Alliance? So Open Handset Alliance is not a single or individual corporation that got separated. It has a group of 47 technology and mobile companies come together, as I spoke before, that in order to accelerate the innovation in mobile technologies and offer rich experience with less expense and better mobile experience. So as I spoke, the smartphones available in that area around that time was only the iOS, which means that it had, user or the common man had no other option except to go to iOS if he has to use a smartphone. So Open Handset Alliance took this seriously, where the 47 technology and mobile companies came together in order to give the users a rich experience in the very cost effective nature, which means very less expensive. And together all these 47 companies has invested together into the development of Android, and then we see the present version of Android, which is the collective hard work of Open Handset Alliance. And the motto of OHA is always that it's commercially deploy handsets and services using Android platform with rich consumer application and less expensive. And there you see the several companies who is a part of OHA or Open Handset Alliance, and you see so many of the top companies of today, and previous times, and they had been collectively, and today whatever Android version that we are seeing in our mobiles is the hard work of all these people, or at least their pennies has been invested on this Google Android. And of course they had been segregated into different categories, like there are few operators, and you can see the software companies that has been into this OHA, and commercialization companies, semiconductor companies, and handset manufacturers. So the most important role was played by each and every part of this operators, software companies, commercializations, and semiconductors and handset manufacturers all together. It's not only simply a LG or Samsung or any other mobile platform or mobile company we are talking about. It is completely each and every part of these people had put on their effort. And we see presently we have seen we see very sophisticated phones for this time, and previously the very first G1 Droid mobile actually looked in that way. That means the very first Android phone, HTC G1, which was released by T-Mobile, and Moto Droid X, which is a little bit more advanced than the previous versions, and Suno, Samsung Galaxy, and Sony Ericsson. Each and every company has been incorporating Android mobiles, and all this together will make a very big stakeholders of Android and today's smartphones stakeholders. And there are two kinds of Android devices. One is the phones that we saw now, and there is also called tablets. So the same thing, when we take it in iOS, we call them iPhone and iPads. So in the same way, in Android we call them as phones, normal smartphones, whatever we call it, Android phones, and in place of iPads we call them as tablets, because of course that name has been already patented by iOS, so you can't use the same name for Android devices, at least for the segregation. So you see the difference of the phones and these tablets is that the size of this tablets is more higher than or more large than a phone. So specifically the tablets will be kind of size of small notebook, where it will be very easy to read any kind of ebooks, or it will be very easy to any kind of thing that you can do on a phone, for movies, songs, you can do anything. So it's nowadays we see so many other tablets which had the even SIM slot, which can be used for calling purposes. Normally the tablets is not something that you actually use for calling some persons out of your network, but this is something we call, in Android culture we call them as phablet, which means that it's phone plus tablet, we call it as phablet. So two kinds of devices, one phones and two tablets. And yes, the platform, Android is a platform, and it's not a single piece of hardware, it's complete and end-to-end software. It had everything, even from bootloader to the application level, it had everything in there. You don't need to put anything new onto the hardware device in order to make it full Android. Android is not a piece, it's complete. And the best part of Android is that it supports, or it can be adapted to any hardware configurations with minor changes, of course, because the Android OS for me or for my mobile used and for the other company mobiles used may or may not have minor changes. So it's not something that it is very rich in its flexibility. It's completely flexible in order to fit to the hardware configurations and adapt to any working devices, any working hardware devices. So that is why today you see the hardware which is not only Android has been limiting it with the phones or tablets. We actually see even the TVs, Android TVs, which is going to be very recently get getting into the market, and Android TVs, which means the watches which are called smart watches, which gives you the similar kind of information that you actually see on your mobile. So that's what Android is not something very reached, but it can be changed at any point, any level in its era, so that it can be adaptable to the any hardware configurations, provided hardware had, I mean Android had some configuration policies, like it has to be this much of RAM and this much of CPU and this many hertz of frequency. So up to that level, yes, there it has to have few prerequisites, you have to match it. Then you, from there on, you can take Android to any next level you can think it, left to your creativity. So we see some of the stakeholders, operators, device manufacturers, software vendors, where these people are being originated from. OHA, Open Alliance, Open Handset Alliance people, and they make the stakeholders, they were totally completely into the stakeholders. I mean, all these parts come into the stakeholders, not one people leaving behind, or no one is words are better in this. It's just that all these people together will make a stakeholder and will make a better Android OS. And as today we see the mobile experience, previously we had been used phone, pager, PD organizer, laptop, portable music player, you can call it as iPod or any Walkman or any music device, you use it separately apart from your phone. And previously the phones used not to have any internet access, even though you had, it's very limited access. But all these 6 are not the only thing, there could be some other more technologies that has been used previously, but they had been completely compressed into a single thing called smartphone. So you can do all those things in the left in one single smartphone. I mean, your phone could be your pager in order to receive any kind of messages from anywhere or from any of your close ones, and also the portable music player. We know that as today each and every hands are being decorated with the smartphones, so we don't need so much of introduction for that, I feel. So no internet access and limited access previously, but today smartphone is something that, which means that which acts smart, and it's also had other definition called which had internet. So basically the idea behind calling it a smartphone, because it is having an internet access. So of course we are using that for everyday WhatsApp, Facebook, and whatever the applications you use, those all need internet, so I don't need to explain that further. And this is for today. And tomorrow, do you think anything more maturing mobile experiences? So for example, today the phone has become the pager, music player, laptop, game station, GPS, and not what, it's becoming part of your payments. I mean it's going to be your wallet, which means Google Wallet is something that is being used for paying your payments and all, simply by bumping or simply by putting your phone near to our device, so that your payment is simply done there. And you see there are so many other applications that's coming into the mobile smartphones, which means like there were daily usage applications which will could be like into the health sector, which acts as your medical advisor, and car, home, office keys, that could be your the meetings organizer, and also the book readers, where you see this lot of PDF books coming in, so you can simply download that to your smartphone and simply read it on anywhere, just like that, on a simple tweak. And cash on demand, yes, you can actually pay your payments from anywhere using simply making your mobile as your wallet, or digital wallet we call this normally in the technical terminology as digital wallet, where you see or you pay your payments anywhere simply putting on some money on your phone. Of course there is security concern with that, but of course we simply end up in making it more secure each and everything day by day. So PlayStations, this is one of the wonderful component of a smartphone, I feel, where you can play any number of games, and the quality and the kind of the gaming experience is being enhanced day by day. And also some other joysticks, and also there were extra accessories that you can connect to your phone. You can make your phone as simple PSP. And portable music player, we know that, and each and every phone is actually being equipped with the music player, video players, radio by default. And you can also make it as a TV, and portable TV on a smartphone, which may not be looking so much of convincing by today, but yes it is, because if some people by now should have been used cast screen option that was present in recent Android versions, which has been implemented or incorporated in 4.4 plus Android devices, which means that it's coming on Lollipop. With the cast screen, simply you can cast any screen, or you can simply cast with the Chromecast, which helps to see your TV directly on your phone, or you can share any screen by Chromecast, or you call it cast screening. So yes, it is also a portable TV. Of course the Android TVs are on the other hand. I'm only talking about the smartphones. And laptop, yes, today the smart devices or the tablets that you actually seeing around are being working as a simple laptops these days, because it actually having all kind of hardware that has to be incorporated, like keyboards, mouse, and you simply connect to your tablets and you see it just converted into a simple laptop in seconds. So, and yet it's left to your own creativity what can a mobile phone can be converted into, or I mean it's not literally converting into, but it's that for what you're going to use it. So you can use it to any purpose. As of now we can see a listed list of things on the screen which is being now being used, and yes, there are yet to come, and we see them in near future. And there are some competitors. I mean, of course there is a competition every time in the technical perspective, so of course the competition always helps us to keep on improving us in case of quality and getting near to the more and more to the people. So the very first competitor, as of everyone knew, it's Apple Incorporation, where you see iOS, iPads, Mac, Macintosh, whatever the devices are, they come out of Apple Incorporation. And this is one of the competitors to Android. And Microsoft, as we know, Microsoft also had been released some smart devices before Android. So of course they had been very limited, or they had been used by very limited people, so it's completely knocked into the hands of very common people like us of in like Android or some other phones. And Nokia is a very old company that we actually very close with the mobile phones. I mean, I'm not actually putting it to the smartphones, but I'm talking about only mobile phones which were having a simple keyboard and which is having a black and white screens. Yes, Nokia is also a competitor, and Palm is another OS which is also prior to Android and was the competitor to Android. And I actually personally feel that these were not completely in the race as of now, because Nokia is already incorporating to Android OS by now, and you have seen so many Nokia phones that has been released with Android OS. Similarly, Microsoft also released a few phones. Of course, they are very low versions. And Research in Motion is another mobile OS company which is also a competitor to Android. And Symbian is actually the OS of Nokia that has been incorporated Nokia for so many days. And Symbian is actually very very low kind of OS, which means it gives only the digital and black and white screens, which has been left farther in the past. So yes, Android has competitors, and the list of competitors you see, there are not only 6, and there are other so many OS in the market. Of course, that doesn't come into light because Android stakeholders or stake is a lot more bigger than any other mobile OS in the world till now. And let's come to the platform. So let's come to the Android back, and let's get into the core concepts. The architecture of Android actually consisting of so many parts. As I told you, it had everything from bootloader to the application level. And if you see the picture on the your screen, it had different layers. I mean, it's actually called as Android software stack, where you see applications, application framework, libraries, Android runtime, Linux kernel. So each part of it is actually working at different level. So as you speak, the Linux kernel works at driver level, and libraries work at their core components level, and Android runtime is something we speak about more detail in the further classes. And application framework, where you see your call managers, contacts, resource managers, which we can again get into the detail in further classes. And application level is where we generally run our user apps. In this sense, any application that you run, I mean any application you develop and you run it on your mobile phones, are actually running on the application layer. If you take applications as one layer, application framework as one layer, libraries as one layer, and kernel is one layer. So each of this part is actually coming into different layers and comes into scenario at different processing time. And applications is what now any application developer develops the applications and runs his applications on. So generally we see home, contacts, phone, or whatever the applications that you see on your mobile phone, including the calendar or your call logs, each of it as is an application which comes into the very first layer. So all other layers will actually help you in order to make your application seamless. So in this sense, if you had contacts, the contacts in the first layer will be related with the content providers that is present in application framework, because the content providers is someone responsible for saving your contacts in your phone or any other sync, or it is responsible for your any data you go save in your phone. So contacts is somewhere, contacts will actually go to content providers and get the contacts to show them.